Hello everyone, I am Dr. Furkan Gözükara. In this lecture video, I am going to explain asynchronous programming concepts when using .NET Core 7 with C# programming language. I will code a WPF application to demonstrate async, await, ConfigureAwait, and task concepts while doing asynchronous coding. I will show how ConfigureAwait is important to prevent deadlocks while using async and await keywords. Let's start coding with composing a .NET Core 7 WPF application. If your Visual Studio is lacking .NET Core 7, just download latest Visual Studio Community Edition and update it to the latest version. Here, let me show you how to update your Visual Studio. As you can see, my Visual Studio is up to date. Its version is 17.4.1. Okay, so let's start composing our WPF project. I am going to pick WPF application. You can also look for it with searching WPF, and then you see there is ASP.NET Core WPF app. Then click next. Okay, it will be in my desktop. Let's say async programming. I am going to pick .NET 7, and this is .NET Core web app. Let's fix it quickly. Okay, here WPF application, and it is with .NET Core. Okay, next. You see it says that there is WPF application. Okay, .NET Core 7. Okay, application is started now. The interface is loaded. So let's start with generating a button control. First, I will show you how a deadlock can happen when we are doing asynchronous programming with async and await keywords. Let's say test async deadlock. Okay. And with double clicking it, I'm going to compose click event here. Okay. So let's assume that we have an async method that will return a string. Let's say return source code of a web page as a string. Okay. I will use HTTP client. Okay. And inside here we will use HTTP response. Okay. Sorry, not necessarily we need that. Okay, response request equal to. You see, it has suggested me to autocomplete as like this, and it's correct. And we will return response request. Okay, content. Okay, then let's see. Okay, like this. All right. However, since this is asynchronous with async keyword, we need to say await here. And since this is async method, we can't just return it like this. We have to return a task like this. Okay. And let's add a label or a text block to display source code. I'm going to pick a text block. Okay, let's name it as block source code. Okay, I have named it as txt block source code. Then let's assign text of txt block source code equal to return source code of my developed web-based game, which is https www monster.mmorpg.com. Okay. However, to access result of an async method, we have to get result. So what does this async do? Async means that that method is asynchronous and it will not block the thread that it is executed. However, to get its result, I need to use await keyword. And when you use await keyword, then you don't need to access it by result. So when I run this code, what will happen? Let's see. Let's run our application and see. Okay, I am clicking it, and you see it has returned the result as expected, because there is a key issue here. You see my button click is now also asynchronous. However, if I don't want to make it asynchronous, then I need to return async keyword here that the Visual Studio did put automatically, and I need to use result like this. Okay, let's see now what happens. Okay, I'm clicking and my application is completely frozen. Do you know why? Because currently the UI thread is blocked. The reason is that UI thread is waiting the result of this method call, and this method call is not able to execute because the UI thread is already frozen. So how can I solve this problem? So for solving this problem, I can use ConfigureAwait. So when you set ConfigureAwait false on an async method, this means that this method can now run on a different thread. Okay, so to see the thread IDs that each method is running, let's use ManagedThreadId code. Okay, let's write it to our output window with thread. Okay, current thread, managed thread ID. Okay, so it says that thread is not existing in the current context. For that, I am adding using threads. Okay, so this will print the thread ID of the thread that this line is executed. Then let's also see the thread ID here. Let's also add some extra information as, okay, inside here. Then let's also write it as like this, inside here. And then 1 second. Okay, inside the first using statement, inside using HTTP client, and inside here. Okay, so first let's run it without ConfigureAwait and see which output we are getting. Okay, let's check out the output window. So, okay, we see that inside btn test async deadlock click, which is here, the thread ID is 1. It is expected because we are currently inside the main UI thread, and it is 1. And in the source code, so it has entered here, we are still inside thread ID 1, and then we have entered here as well inside using HTTP client. However, since we are doing await here, now it becomes asynchronous call, and it logs our execution. And you see we didn't enter inside here because the UI thread is now awaiting that response. So the main thread is UI thread is locked, frozen, and this execution is waiting that thread to be released. Okay, so when I add this execution ConfigureAwait as false, now let's see output. Let's see the output again. Okay, the button is still frozen because it is not anymore asynchronous. However, now we can see inside using response. You see inside here now running in a different thread, and the thread ID is 6. Okay, so this is where ConfigureAwait is very useful, because when you set ConfigureAwait false, then that asynchronous method call becomes starts running in a different thread. Okay, so if we don't want the interface to be frozen, let's copy and paste this button, and let's say btn test proper async code. Okay, proper async code. Okay, so this will cause a deadlock, so I'm going to delete this. All right. Oh, we don't need that actually. So this is return source code with, or let's say, let's add an option here. Okay, bool cause that lock equal to false. Okay. Okay, so if we don't want to cause deadlock, then ConfigureAwait, then I need to give opposite of this. So by default, it will cause a deadlock, and to cause a deadlock, we need to give ConfigureAwait true. Okay. Maybe this make you confused. So let's say bl ConfigureAwait by default, let's make it false, so it won't cause a deadlock. Okay, now it won't cause a deadlock. So to cause a deadlock, I need to provide it true. Okay, and yes, now it will cause a deadlock. Let's try. Okay, so you see we are never getting inside here. So now it is deadlocked because main thread, the UI thread, is awaiting the result, and the result is awaiting main thread, UI thread, to be released to run. Okay, so each one is awaiting each one, and it causes a deadlock. All right, so let's make this as non-deadlocking, or let's say ConfigureAwait asynchronous code. Okay, I need to change its click event. btn ConfigureAwait async code. Okay, and this time we are just going to run it with false, and let's try. Okay, still the interface is frozen during the runtime because this button click is not asynchronous. However, it is not that locked. Okay, and let's also add another button which will be responsive, btn responsive, okay, async click. Let's say it as responsive async click. Okay, and I need to generate a new click event. Okay, so I'm going to mark this method as async, and I can also let Visual Studio to mark it as async automatically with await. Okay, and now you see it is automatically marked as async. Okay, now in this case it will not freeze the interface. Let's try. Okay, let's try again. Okay, the interface is not freezed. However, meanwhile the text block is getting updated. During that time the interface will freeze, of course, because it is getting updated. And since source code is pretty big, it is not displayed entirely here. It takes some time. Actually, maybe we can fix it with okay, 8 or I don't know. Let's see. Max height, for example, let's say 6,000, and let's see what happens. Okay, probably we need to add scroll bars. Let's see, horizontal alignment, no. Scroll bar, okay. Scroll, no. Okay, anyway, it is not important for this lecture. And there is another methodology, one more method, actually two more methodology. So let's also see them. I'm going to expand this a little bit more. Why? Okay. Okay, here. Okay. Now I will use task methodology. Okay. So btn task example. I will call this as task version 1. Okay. And let's generate this click event. So this time I will start this code inside, or let's say as a task. Task, let's say var task equal to task factory start new. Okay, it automatically completes. Very nice. And let's call it like this. And by the way, still this is a async method, so I need to call await. And I need to assign this into a string variable. Let's say string source. Like this. And let's say the source is equal to await dot result. Okay. Okay. I need to provide the source code, of course. I mean the URL. All right. And no result. Okay. And then what do I need to do is I can do task.wait. This will make it synchronous, and then I can assign the source like this. Okay, and it says that this can be null here, so let's initialize it like this. All right, you see it is still pretty responsive, but we never get the result. So in this case, we need to set ConfigureAwait true. Otherwise, it will return from that asynchronous, and the task wait will never work. I suppose. Let's try. Yes, we did enter inside the request. Okay. All right. This is the sound of my girl. Okay, we do enter inside the request. However, it is obvious that the source code is immediately executed without waiting. So the task is completed immediately since we are doing an asynchronous call here, and therefore maybe we need to do, okay, let's see. Okay, we need to turn this asynchronous call into a synchronous call because we are already spawning a new task. And here we just need to provide, or let's say get result. Okay, and we need to remove the wait keyword. All right. Now, since this will run inside a different thread than the main thread, then it won't cause any problem as a deadlock. However, our interface will be still frozen. Let's try. Okay, it is working. Now let's make another example of task with ContinueWith. So I will call this task as version 2. Okay, and let's say btn task version 2. All right. Okay. Okay, so in this case, we are going to use a different methodology as ContinueWith. All right. And it says we need a new action. Okay, new action. Okay, and it says task. Okay, one moment. Okay, it is pretty simple actually. We are going to call this as a T1 parameter, which will be, when we hover it, we see that it is task T1. So this means that it is the result of execution of this task. Okay, and inside there we will have the result of the task. Therefore, I will assign, I don't need this anymore, the text as equal to okay, t1 dot, okay, result. Okay, and I just need to return the result of the inner execution. Okay, now this is supposed to not block anything and update the text block. Let's try. Okay, it is not blocked. Okay, inside is called. All right, so we have a little bit another problem. Okay, which is, this is task return. Okay, we are waiting it, we are locking it. So let's retry. Maybe we didn't wait. Okay, we did enter inside. Oh, we have an system invalid operation exception somewhere. Okay, let's put a breakpoint here. Maybe our error is there. Okay, and when we debug the result, okay, the result is there as well. Oh, I know the reason. I know the problem. The problem is we cannot update the UI element inside another task. So I need to use dispatcher and let's say begin invoke new action, and inside that I need to assign it. Okay, so you see it defines a new action like this, and it's anonymous call because we don't need any parameter. Actually it is like here, as you can see, but this is empty action. And yes, now it should work. Let's try. Okay, all right, I have shown multiple ways to use async and task to do asynchronous programming. I hope you have enjoyed. Please ask your questions in the comment section. Hopefully see you in another video. Let me know through the comment section that what questions do you have, what topics do you wonder, what would you like to see in my next video. Okay, hopefully see you later.